Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Rachel Wolfe. I run Public First, which is an economics and policy consultancy. But before that, I spent some time in Downing Street in charge of innovation and skills policy. And I've been working with a group in Public First who have been through the pain of the Oxford-Cambridge area in various ways through Downing Street, Treasury, and MHCLG. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the national context and how they might be thinking about that, and then how this report fits in. So fairly obviously, you are all thinking about the potential of the region. But when you're in central government, what you think about is the potential of the country. And I think it's worth stating where we are and therefore where this fits in. This is a government that has inherited a country which has relatively stagnant growth, declining GDP per capita, very large productivity gaps with its international comparators, and on an initial wave of enthusiasm from business and many of the people in this room, some questions from the business community and the international investment community about where that growth is going to come from. And the reason that I emphasize that is that in my line of work, I spend enormous amounts of time working with companies and regions who want to make a case that they are the answer to the government's problem. So it used to be levelling up, and every single organization would say that they were the answer to levelling up, and now it's the growth or the missions. And the amazing thing about the Oxford-Cambridge supercluster is it has the great advantage of it being true. And that is rare, and it makes it relatively easy to make this case. And what I'm going to do today is just talk a bit about the report that we will be publishing. Because there's actually so much interest from DCIT and others that we're just making sure that that is in the right place before it gets published, and what the baseline is that this argument is going to make. So what have we done? We have started by looking at international comparators. Why do we think that this is a region of potential? Because we know how clusters work, and we know how agglomeration works, and we know how it's worked in other places. So we've been looking at a whole series of clusters of different types: San Francisco, Boston, they're the ones that often come up, Seoul, the Holland metropole, to understand what they've done, where they compare to the UK, and how the government could intensify its advantage. We've then modeled the economic implication of 3 different growth paths. On the last panel, someone made the very important point that there is a scenario in which not only does this region not grow any faster, but it actually stagnates, it goes backwards. And one of the things that we have been looking at and identifying are the policy levers that are necessary just to maintain the current rate of growth, as well as accelerate that and tie that to the policy levers and factors that you've already been working on as a group. Third, assess and understand exactly what the key constraints to growth would be under each of those scenarios. And we've focused on people, talent, and also the need to draw in that talent, infrastructure, various kinds, including East-West Rail, capital funding, and the largest startup and scale-up ecosystem. So what are the different levers, and what are the different ways in which not releasing those levers could prevent you going on a growth path? And then, in line with the board, and we can talk about this in the panel, we've identified what those key constraints are and how the government might change them. And I think one thing, again, from my own perspective as someone who's worked in government a lot of time, is in the kind of political and policy world, is government never knows what to do as much as you think it ought to. So providing those policy levers from the outside is actually completely critical. So sadly, I can't tell you exactly what we found. We'll do that next time. But I do want to stress just a couple of things that in all my interactions with policymakers has really struck home. So you all know this. The Oxcam region has absolute phenomenal innovation potential, and it already, on some measures, performs incredibly well because it is one of the great science powerhouses of the world. And indeed, on some of these measures, scientific publications per capita, and I'm going to keep stressing the per capita bit because I think it's crucial, it performs better than anywhere. It's the best. It also has one of the most educated workforces globally, and still does, and again, on a per capita basis, is extraordinarily innovative. So it produces more unicorn companies per 100,000 people than almost anywhere else, a little bit below Boston, admittedly not yet as San Francisco. But, and this is the big but, the really big thing which we started from is this is a region of incredible strength and incredible potential, but whose per capita potential and performance massively outweighs its overall performance because its scale is so limited. And so if you look at this, which is what we call the spillover effect, so effectively you have an agglomerated region or agglomerated city, normally what you get is spillover effects across other sectors and other parts of the regional economy. Despite its very, very high high potential, it neither performs on an absolute level, as opposed to a per capita level, and we can circulate these, I know it's hard to see, as well as it could. It also has far fewer regional spillover effects than other comparator superclusters. This is fundamentally a scale problem. Unless it grows, it cannot spill over to, in a sensible way, it cannot spill over to the wider region and indeed to the rest of the country in the way that other clusters around the world are already doing. So what we've identified is this is a region of astonishing potential, astonishing performance, which is incredibly limited by its scale. And what we will be doing in the report, which we publish and I'm sure will all be circulated to you, is identifying exactly how much growth you could get if you release those policy levers and why that is, really truly is, the answer to one of the greatest economic challenges that any new government has faced for many decades, which is how we turn around the productivity growth and overarching growth of this country. Thank you.